Rhodes was found shot at the Queen of Hearts pub on East Livingston Avenue, along with two other women after a fight broke out. A 17-year-old girl was shot and listed in critical condition, while a 42-year-old woman is expected to survive.
It was supposed to be just another Saturday night at the Queen of Hearts pub on East Livingston Avenue in Columbus, Ohio. The after-hours party was in full swing on September 25th, 2022, with music pumping and friends gathering to unwind from the week. But in the span of mere minutes, what began as celebration would transform into absolute horror. 30-year-old Shamira Rhodes, a vibrant mother of three and professional hairstylist, had arrived with her 17-year-old sister Katera Griffin, affectionately known as BB. To those who loved her, the sisters were inseparable, always together, sharing that special bond that only siblings understand. They had come to enjoy themselves, to laugh and dance, completely unaware that they were walking into what would become their final moments together. As the night progressed, an argument erupted inside the club. Voices raised, tensions escalated, and then the unthinkable happened. Gunshots shattered the night air. Chaos erupted as patrons screamed and scrambled for safety. But for the Rhodes family, it was already too late. When the smoke cleared and police arrived at the scene, they discovered a nightmare that would haunt this family forever. Shamira Rhodes lay motionless on the floor, her life stolen in an instant. The warrior who had been fighting to build a better future for her children would never see them grow up. But the horror didn't end there. Her baby sister Katera had also been struck, a bullet tearing through her stomach as she witnessed her older sister's murder. While Shamira was pronounced dead at the scene, 17-year-old Katera clung to life, rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The family held on to hope, praying that at least one sister would survive this senseless act of violence. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of their unimaginable tragedy. For 20 agonizing days, Katera fought with everything she had. 10 surgeries, countless hours of medical intervention, a family praying desperately for a miracle while simultaneously planning their daughter's funeral. The teenager who had been a devoted aunt to Shamira's 3 children battled through procedure after procedure, her young body struggling against the devastating damage. But on October 15th, 2022, the unthinkable became reality. Katera's kidneys failed. Her heart gave out. Her liver shut down. The 17-year-old who had her entire life ahead of her joined her sister in death, leaving behind a family destroyed beyond comprehension. In just 3 weeks, a mother had lost not one, but both of her daughters. 3 children had lost their mother and their beloved aunt. A community was left reeling from a double tragedy that seemed impossible to process. How does anyone survive such devastating loss? How does a family even begin to heal from this kind of destruction? Tonight, I'm going to take you inside one of the most heartbreaking true crime cases I've ever encountered. This isn't just a story about gun violence or a nightclub shooting. This is about 2 sisters whose bond was so strong that even death couldn't separate them. It's about a family's worst nightmare becoming reality twice over in the span of just 21 days. You're going to hear about the security footage that revealed the shocking truth behind this attack. You'll learn about the woman who destroyed an entire family in minutes, and how justice finally caught up with her. But most importantly, you'll discover the warning signs that could help you protect yourself and your loved ones from similar tragedies. If you think you've heard every possible true crime story, I promise you haven't heard anything like this. So buckle up, because what I'm about to share with you will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about family, loyalty, and survival. To understand the magnitude of this tragedy, you need to know who Shamira Rhodes really was. At 30 years old, she wasn't just another statistic in Columbus's growing gun violence problem. She was a force of nature, described by her closest friend Tiara Walton as vibrant, sarcastic, and her laugh was deep. When Shamira entered a room, people noticed. Her personality filled every corner with warmth and energy. As a professional hairstylist, Shamira had built her career on making others feel beautiful and confident. But her greatest pride came from being a mother to 3 young children, 2 boys, and a little girl who looked up to her as their hero. She was what Walton called a warrior, someone who refused to give up despite life's challenges. Every day, Shamira fought to create a better future for her family, working tirelessly to provide opportunities her children deserved. 13 years younger than Shamira was her baby sister, Katera Griffin, known to everyone who loved her as BB. At just 17, she had already shown the same strength and loyalty that defined her older sister. While most teenagers her age were focused on school, friends, and figuring out their futures, BB had taken on a role that went far beyond her years. She wasn't just an aunt to Shamira's 3 children. She was their second mother, their protector, their constant source of love and support. When Shamira worked long hours at the salon, BB stepped in without hesitation. When the kids needed someone to play with, comfort them, or help with homework, BB was there with open arms and endless patience. Despite the age gap, the 2 sisters shared an extraordinary connection that transcended typical sibling relationships. They were best friends, confidants, and each other's biggest supporters. They were always together, Tiara Walton remembered, and those words capture the essence of what made Shamira and BB so special. This wasn't just about family obligation or convenience. These sisters genuinely enjoyed each other's company. They shared inside jokes, supported each other's dreams, and created memories that should have lasted a lifetime. When Shamira went out, BB was right beside her. When BB needed guidance or someone to talk to, Shamira was her first call. They shopped together, laughed together, and faced life's challenges as a team. Their bond was so strong that friends often said they seemed more like twins than sisters, with a 13-year age gap. BB looked up to Shamira not just as an older sister, but as a role model for the kind of woman she wanted to become. Strong, independent, loving, and fiercely protective of family. What made their relationship even more beautiful was how they balanced each other perfectly. Shamira brought the wisdom and experience of someone who had navigated motherhood and built a career, while BB brought youthful energy and fresh perspective that kept her older sister grounded. Together, they created a support system that seemed unbreakable. For Shamira's children, having both their mother and Aunt BB meant having twice the love, twice the protection, and twice the guidance. BB wasn't just present for the fun moments. She was there for scraped knees, bedtime stories, and all the little moments that make childhood special. She had stepped into a maternal role with such grace that the children saw her as essential to their world. This tight-knit family unit had weathered storms together, celebrated victories together, and built a foundation of love that seemed strong enough to withstand anything life could throw at them.
Back to that deadly bar shooting from over the weekend. 10 Investigates has learned the city's attorney's office now planning to take legal action against the bar and property owners.
And according to records, the bar had a court order to cut back on hours, hire security, and restrict who could come in. Here's Chief Investigative Reporter Bennett Haverly with what else he's uncovered. Bennett?
Yolanda, the city attorney's office says even though the bar has changed ownership and its name, that venue is still subject to that court order from February that would have limited hours and require security in place. That's why they plan to ask a judge to hold the bar and the property owners in contempt. This weekend shooting at the Queen of Hearts pub up East Livingston claimed the life of 30-year-old Shamira Rhodes. Those who knew her described her as charismatic, a mother, a hairdresser, an entertainer. Her friends say they're struggling with the loss.
Her life was just cut down tragically, and it overwhelmed everyone who's involved in it. It is honestly something that we never expected to come in contact with. It is overwhelming, truly. Like, she has 3 children.
Tiara Walton described herself as Shamira's sister. While the two aren't blood related, she says she's helping raise one of Shamira's children and is now helping to plan her funeral. Walton says there was an altercation before this weekend's shooting. Columbus police would now like the public's help identifying these women who were in the bar early Sunday morning.
Where she was in that moment does not define who she was as a person or character or how this case should be looked at.
This is unacceptable. And anything that I can do, as I've told the family, as I've told other people, to push back against gun violence, I'm going to continue to do. This was just too much for me.
State Representative Latina Humphrey says she was friends with Shamira and has known her for 18 years. She says this weekend's shooting is a reminder of the current ease placed on gun restrictions and a lack of conflict resolution skills among people.
I don't care what the disagreement was, it didn't need to end in death.
Court records show the city attorney's office had taken legal action against the bar's previous owner, which compelled it to reduce its hours, hire security, and not allow anyone to enter under the age of 30. A clause in the document also states if there's a violation, the court may further close and board up the storefront. That holds true for the previous bar owner or its successor.
You can't just start shutting down all the bars because there is crime out there in the streets.
Attorney Jim Andrioff used to represent the bar's owner when it was called the Pelican Club. He says the city attorney's efforts to restrict or shut down certain bars after shootings won't quell future violence. Just send it elsewhere.
It just doesn't make any sense. It's never going to end.
But don't they bear some responsibility for what happens at their bar or their business?
There's no question that they bear responsibility for what happens at their bar. But if you're a business owner and you're trying to prevent things from happening by getting security detail or getting police, there's a big difference between getting Columbus police as security versus a private security company that doesn't get the same training.
Shamira Rhodes' friends say everyone bears some responsibility.
We're not removing any blame. We're not saying that, that it's entirely their fault. But what we are saying is everyone needs to play the role that they need to play and to stop these things from happening.
And tonight we've been unable to reach the current bar owner despite phone calls and 2 emails sent today. We're also hoping to get a response from the city attorney's office and the Columbus police about their efforts in working with some of these establishments and the enforcements there. We'll provide an update when we hear back. Yolanda?
The Queen of Hearts pub on East Livingston Avenue was buzzing with energy that Saturday night. The after-hours establishment had become a popular spot for Columbus locals looking to extend their weekend celebrations beyond typical bar hours. The atmosphere was electric, filled with music, laughter, and the kind of carefree energy that comes with letting loose after a long week. Shamira and BB arrived together, as they always did. For Shamira, this was a rare night out, a chance to step away from the responsibilities of motherhood and her demanding career as a hairstylist. For 17-year-old BB, it was an opportunity to spend quality time with her beloved older sister, dancing and enjoying each other's company. The sisters moved through the crowd with ease, greeting friends and settling into what should have been a perfect night of sisterly bonding and harmless fun. As the night progressed, the club remained packed with patrons enjoying themselves. The music was loud, drinks were flowing, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. Shamira and BB were in their element, laughing and dancing together like they had done countless times before. Nothing about the evening suggested that danger was lurking nearby. But somewhere in that crowded space, tensions were beginning to rise. What started as a minor disagreement between patrons was slowly escalating into something much more serious. Voices began to raise above the music, and the festive atmosphere started to shift as people noticed the growing conflict. The argument involved multiple people, with emotions running high and tempers flaring. In a matter of minutes, what had been a celebration was transforming into a powder keg of anger and hostility. The sisters, focused on enjoying their night together, remained unaware of the storm that was about to engulf them. Then, without warning, the situation exploded into violence. Someone in the crowd pulled out a gun, and the festive atmosphere instantly transformed into pure terror. Screams pierced the air as patrons realized what was happening. People began running in every direction, desperately seeking cover or an exit as gunshots rang out through the club. In those chaotic moments, Shamira and BB found themselves caught in the crossfire of someone else's rage. The sisters, who had come out simply to enjoy each other's company, were now fighting for their lives in a nightmare they never could have anticipated. The gunfire seemed to last forever, though it was likely only seconds. When the shooting finally stopped, the club fell into an awful silence, broken only by cries for help and the sound of people calling for emergency services. The damage had been done, and 2 innocent lives hung in the balance. When police and paramedics arrived at the scene, they discovered the full horror of what had transpired. Shamira Rhodes lay motionless on the floor, her vibrant life extinguished in an instant. The 30-year-old mother who had been laughing and dancing with her sister just moments before was gone, another victim of senseless gun violence. But the tragedy didn't end there. 17-year-old BB had also been struck, a bullet tearing through her stomach as she witnessed her beloved sister's murder. The teenager was conscious but in critical condition, her young body fighting against devastating injuries, while her mind tried to process the unthinkable reality of what had just happened. Emergency responders worked frantically to stabilize BB before rushing her to the hospital. As they loaded her into the ambulance, she was not only battling for her physical survival, but also grappling with the traumatic loss of the person who meant everything to her. The warrior's fight was over. Shamira Rhodes, the woman who had battled every day to create a better life for her children, had lost her final battle in the most senseless way possible. At 30 years old, with so much life left to live and so many dreams yet to fulfill, her journey ended on the cold floor of a nightclub she had entered with nothing but joy in her heart. The woman who friends described as vibrant and full of laughter would never laugh again. The mother who worked tirelessly as a professional hairstylist to provide for her family would never hold her children again. The sister who had been BB's role model and best friend was gone, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. Her death was instantaneous, but the ripple effects would last forever. For 17-year-old BB, lying wounded on that same floor, the trauma was beyond comprehension. She had not only been shot herself, but had witnessed her beloved sister's murder right before her eyes. The teenager who had looked up to Shamira as her hero, her guide, and her best friend now faced the impossible reality that her sister was gone forever. As paramedics worked to save BB's life, she was forced to process an unthinkable loss while fighting for her own survival. The girl who had been Shamira's constant companion, who had helped raise her sister's children with such love and dedication, was now alone in ways she had never imagined possible. The psychological trauma of witnessing such violence, combined with her own life-threatening injuries, created a perfect storm of physical and emotional devastation that would challenge every ounce of strength she possessed. News of Shamira's death sent shockwaves through the Columbus community. Friends, family, and clients from her hair salon struggled to comprehend how someone so full of life could be taken so suddenly and violently. Tiara Walton, Shamira's close friend, became the voice of a grieving community, speaking about the woman they had all loved and admired. The search for justice began immediately. Columbus police launched an investigation, collecting evidence and interviewing witnesses who had been present during the shooting. They released photos of 2 female persons of interest, hoping the community would help identify those responsible for this senseless act of violence. "Turn yourself in," Walton pleaded publicly. "You're going to get caught. Do what's right. Turn yourself in. Do what's right." The community rallied together, demanding answers and accountability for the life that had been stolen from them. But perhaps the most heartbreaking reality was what Shamira's death meant for her 3 young children. 2 boys and a little girl had lost their mother, their protector, their everything. The woman who had fought every day to give them a better future would never see them graduate, never witness their achievements, never be there for all the moments that make childhood special. These children, who had depended on both their mother and Aunt BB for love and guidance, now faced an uncertain future. While BB fought for her life in the hospital, they were left to grapple with questions no child should ever have to ask. Why was Mommy gone? When would she come home? Who would take care of them now? Shamira's family began organizing fundraising efforts to give her the proper burial she deserved, knowing that her mother should never have to bury her own daughter. While the family mourned Shamira's death, 17-year-old Katera Griffin lay fighting for her life in a hospital bed. The bullet that had torn through her stomach had caused devastating internal damage, requiring immediate emergency surgery just to keep her alive. What followed would be 20 of the most agonizing days any family could endure. BB's injuries were catastrophic. The gunshot had damaged multiple organs, causing internal bleeding and complications that would require surgical intervention after surgical intervention. Medical teams worked around the clock, performing procedure after procedure in desperate attempts to repair the damage and give this teenager a chance at survival. Her family maintained a constant vigil at her bedside, praying for a miracle while simultaneously planning Shamira's funeral. The cruel irony wasn't lost on anyone. They were saying goodbye to one daughter while fighting to save another. The first few days brought cautious optimism. BB was young, strong, and had everything to live for. Her family clung to hope, believing that her youth and determination would help her overcome the trauma her body had endured. Friends and community members sent prayers and well wishes, creating a network of support around the grieving family. But as days turned into weeks, it became clear that BB's fight would be far more difficult than anyone had anticipated. Each surgery brought new complications, new challenges that tested the limits of modern medicine. The teenager who had been so full of life and promise was now dependent on machines and medical interventions just to survive. Her family watched helplessly as their beloved BB endured procedure after procedure, each one more desperate than the last. The girl who had been Shamira's constant companion was now battling alone in ways that seemed impossibly cruel. As the days passed, BB underwent surgery after surgery, each procedure a desperate attempt to save her young life. The medical team fought valiantly, but the damage from that single bullet had created a cascade of complications that seemed impossible to overcome. Her family remained by her side, holding on to hope even as the situation grew increasingly dire. One surgery became 2, then 3, then 5. Each time, doctors emerged with cautious updates, explaining the challenges they faced and the next steps they would take. BB's body was fighting with everything it had, but the trauma was overwhelming for someone so young. Her loved ones watched as the vibrant teenager, who had been dancing with her sister just weeks before, now lay connected to machines, her body working overtime just to stay alive. The girl who had been everyone's source of joy was now the center of everyone's prayers. By the time BB had endured 10 surgeries, the harsh reality began to set in. Her kidneys, which had been struggling since the initial trauma, were beginning to fail. The doctors explained that the damage was extensive, affecting multiple organ systems in ways that were becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Her heart, which had been working overtime to compensate for her other injuries, was showing signs of strain. The liver damage was becoming more apparent with each passing day. Despite the medical team's best efforts and the most advanced treatments available, BB's young body was losing the battle against the devastating injuries she had sustained. Her family faced an impossible situation, watching their beloved daughter, sister, and aunt slowly slip away despite everyone's desperate efforts to save her. The girl who had survived the initial shooting was now fighting a war she might not win. On October 6, 2022, just 11 days after the shooting and 9 days before BB would lose her battle for life, Columbus police arrested 28-year-old Amara Battle. The woman who had destroyed an entire family in a matter of minutes was finally in custody, facing charges that would determine whether justice could ever truly be served for such devastating loss. Battle was charged with 2 counts of murder and 1 count of felonious assault, charges that carried the weight of 2 young lives cut tragically short. But these weren't just numbers on a legal document. They represented Shamira's 3 children who would grow up without their mother, BB's dreams that would never be fulfilled, and a family torn apart by senseless violence. The arrest brought some measure of relief to a community that had been demanding answers, but it could never bring back the 2 sisters who had meant everything to so many people. The investigation revealed shocking details about what had actually happened that night at the Queen of Hearts pub. Security footage from inside the club told a story that was even more disturbing than anyone had initially realized. The video showed Battle walking directly up to Shamira Rhodes and attacking her as she and BB attended what should have been a harmless after-hours party. This wasn't a case of being caught in random crossfire or wrong place, wrong time. The footage revealed that Shamira had been deliberately targeted, making the attack even more calculated and cruel. The evidence painted a picture of premeditated violence that had torn apart an innocent family for reasons that seemed incomprehensible to those who knew and loved the sisters. The security footage became crucial evidence in building the case against Battle, providing prosecutors with clear documentation of the events that had led to such devastating loss of life. The trial process moved forward with the weight of an entire community watching. Franklin County Prosecutor Shayla Favor's office worked tirelessly to ensure that justice would be served for Shamira and BB. The case represented more than just another shooting. It symbolized the epidemic of gun violence that was tearing apart families across Columbus and beyond. When the trial concluded, a Franklin County jury delivered their verdict. 30-year-old Amara Battle was found guilty on 4 counts of murder with firearm specifications. The conviction meant that Battle would face serious prison time for the lives she had taken and the family she had destroyed. But for those who loved Shamira and BB, no verdict could truly provide the justice they sought. No prison sentence could bring back the laughter, the love, and the future that had been stolen from them. The conviction was a step toward accountability, but it couldn't heal the wounds that would last forever. The impact on the Columbus community extended far beyond the courtroom. Friends, family members, and even strangers who had followed the case struggled to understand how such senseless violence could destroy so much in so little time. The story of 2 sisters who had been inseparable in life and death resonated with people across the city and beyond. Tiara Walton continued to speak for the family, sharing memories of both sisters while advocating for an end to the gun violence that had claimed their lives. The community rallied around Shamira's 3 children, understanding that these young lives would need support and love to overcome the trauma of losing both their mother and their beloved aunt. The case became a rallying cry for those demanding action against the violence that was claiming too many young lives in their community, turning personal tragedy into a call for change. The tragedy that claimed Shamira and BB's lives serves as a devastating reminder that violence can erupt anywhere, at any time, often targeting completely innocent people. While we may never fully understand what drove Amara Battle to commit such a heinous act, we can examine the circumstances that led to this double murder and learn how to better protect ourselves and our loved ones. The security footage revealed that this wasn't random violence. It was a targeted attack that escalated quickly in a crowded environment. One of the most critical lessons from this case is recognizing the warning signs of escalating conflicts in social settings. When you're out at bars, clubs, or parties, pay attention to rising tensions around you. Look for heated arguments, aggressive body language, or situations where people seem to be squaring off against each other. If you notice someone becoming increasingly agitated or making threats, that's your cue to leave the area immediately. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. When it comes to nightlife safety, always have an exit strategy. Know where all the exits are located when you enter any venue, and stay aware of your surroundings throughout the night. Go out with trusted friends and establish a buddy system where you look out for each other. Avoid getting involved in other people's conflicts, no matter how tempting it might be to intervene. Sometimes the best thing you can do is remove yourself from a dangerous situation before it escalates further. If you suspect someone you know is in an abusive or dangerous relationship, don't ignore the signs. Offer support without judgment. Help them create a safety plan, and connect them with professional resources like domestic violence hotlines. Sometimes being a listening ear can make the difference between life and death. Remember that leaving dangerous situations often requires careful planning and support from others. The deaths of Shamira Rhodes and Katera Griffin remind us that behind every true crime story are real people with real families who loved them deeply. These weren't just statistics. They were a mother, a sister, an aunt, and a friend whose lives mattered immensely to those who knew them. If this story has impacted you the way it has impacted me, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others who need to hear these important safety messages, and subscribe to Explosive True Crime Stories for more in-depth analysis of cases that can help us all stay safer. What are your thoughts on nightlife safety? Have you ever found yourself in a dangerous situation? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help save someone else's life.